In 1995, Nick Leeson lost $1.4 billion at age 28. He toppled a bank that was 233 years old. It didn't happen with one wild movie-style bet. It started with a loss he hid. Then he made it bigger and bigger until the bank couldn't survive it. What's interesting, if you've ever told yourself, "I'll fix it tomorrow," this story matters. Why? Because the same mistake can wipe out a small account just as fast. Your shift ends at 5:58 p.m. The receipt printer is quiet. You count the drawer, it's short $27. Not disaster money. Just enough to make your chest tighten. You tell yourself you'll fix it tomorrow. Maybe you missed a receipt. Maybe the next shift balances it out. So you don't flag it. You tuck the note in a side folder and go home. Now the problem isn't the $27. It's the secret. The next morning, every count feels loaded. You stop looking clearly. Clear numbers would force a hard conversation. The pattern is clear. Most beginners miss this. Small losses usually don't destroy you. Hidden losses do. The first hit hurts your money. The cover-up hurts your judgment. Your life already has a line like this. Rent, gas, groceries. There's some pile of money you can afford to lose without your real life catching fire. Poker players call that your bankroll. The pool of money you can lose without blowing up your life. Once a loss threatens that pile, the game changes. You're no longer solving a mistake. You're protecting your ego. And ego is terrible at math. That's what made Leeson's story so dangerous. The original loss was small enough to survive. Hiding it made him act like tomorrow would rescue today. It rarely does. If that reframe helps, subscribe. 2 of these a week. This traps beginners in markets too. A red number appears. You don't want to admit it. So you give it more room, more time, more excuses. You slide the folder over it in your own way. But a hidden loss by itself still isn't the whole disaster. The real account killer shows up when the next move gets bigger than the money meant to absorb it. That's where this goes from embarrassing to fatal. Your phone shows a $5,000 account. One idea takes up $500. It goes wrong, annoying, but you survive. Now change one thing. Same idea, same mistake, but this time you put $4,000 into one position, a trade you're currently holding. A normal, ugly swing hits. Suddenly your whole week, maybe your rent, is trapped in one chart. That's why size matters more than being right. Poker players learn this early with a bankroll. If one hand can wipe out the whole pile, the cards aren't the problem. The bet was just too big for the pile. Traders have a name for choosing that bet size. It's position sizing, how much money you put into any single trade. This is where small errors turn fatal. Not because the market did something magical, because you let one mistake matter too much. Say your account is $5,000. You mark an entry at $420. Your exit, if wrong, sits at $410. That's a $10 risk per share. At 10 shares, your loss is $100. Painful, clear, you live to trade tomorrow. At 200 shares, that same $10 move costs you $2,000. Same chart, same bad call, completely different damage. Now fear takes over. You widen the stop, you pray, you hide. So the first question isn't, how sure am I? It's how much can this one idea hurt me as I'm wrong? And once you ask that, the next problem shows up. What happens when there isn't a hard break anywhere in the system? So what separates a painful loss from a fatal one? Not the chart, the break. At the left desk, you take one trade with a hard cap, a strict limit you set in advance. Your account is $5,000. Before the trade, you decide this idea gets $50 of risk, no more. The price moves against you, annoying. You close it. You still have rent money, focus, and tomorrow. At the right desk, the same idea starts small, then it slips. You add more, then more. Soon that single position, a trade you're still holding, is no longer one mistake. It's your whole week sitting on one opinion. Now the trade isn't just red, it's heavy. Every tick feels personal. The screen flashes at 11:14 a.m. and your stomach drops. You don't just need the market to bounce, you need rescue. That's the difference between a bruise and a broken leg. Poker players learned this long ago. They keep a bankroll, the money you can lose without wrecking your life. Then they use bankroll management, rules for how much to risk on any single bet. The point isn't to avoid losses. The point is to make sure one bad hand can't end the night. Trading needs the same guardrail. The safe desk loses a trade. The unsafe desk loses choices. And when choices disappear, honesty usually disappears next. A capped loss hurts your ego. An uncapped loss recruits your ego. Here's why it works. Once the trade gets too big, you stop asking if this is still a good idea. You start asking how to get out without feeling stupid. That's how small errors turn into secret errors. And here's the second difference. At the left desk, someone can see the damage. At the right desk, The damage is hidden. No check, no break, no adult in the room forcing the trade back down to a survivable size. That was the real danger at Barings, not just a wrong market call, a wrong call with room to grow in the dark. And when 4 straight days hit Barings in February 1995, that missing break met the real market. The fax machine keeps spitting out paper. On the monitor, the loss number is no longer small enough to hide. By Thursday, February 23, 1995, Nick Leeson had piled Barings into a position, a trade you're currently holding. It was so huge that a normal bad week became a death sentence. He wasn't making tiny side mistakes anymore. He was sitting on giant bets tied to Japan's Nikkei stock index. Then the Kobe earthquake hit Japan that January, and the market moved hard against him. Now put yourself at that desk. Papers everywhere. Trade records on one side, red numbers on the other. Every hour, the hole gets deeper. What's interesting, this is the part people miss. Barings did not die from one dramatic click. It died because a hidden loss grew past what the bank could absorb. Card players would recognize the shape instantly. You can survive a bad hand. You cannot survive pushing your whole stack of chips into one bad hand. Leeson had been hiding losses in an account called 88888. That's a real detail, not a movie version. What began as a place to bury errors became the place where the truth disappeared. And when the market kept moving, the hidden number exploded. Over those final days in February, the losses reached £827 million. That's the figure Barings disclosed. The bank only had about £440 million in capital. Your trading or investing money to support the damage. Read that again. The loss was roughly twice the cushion beneath it. That's bankroll ruin in plain English. Your bankroll is what lets you stay in the game after being wrong. Barings let one trader's exposure, how much of your account is at risk on a trade, grow beyond the bank's bankroll. Once that line was crossed, the next bad move wasn't painful, it was fatal. And the timeline is brutal. On February 23rd, Leeson fled Singapore, leaving a note that said, "I'm sorry." On February 26th, Barings was declared insolvent. A 233-year-old bank was finished in 4 days. Soon after, ING bought it for £1. Notice what did not kill Barings. Not a lack of intelligence, not a lack of activity, not even one wrong market thesis, your specific reason for taking the trade. The killer was size without a ceiling. A mistake that should have stayed survivable, grew larger than the institution itself. Bring that back to your screen. If your account is $5,000, a bad trade should hurt, teach, and end. It should not be able to erase the whole account because you kept adding, hiding, or refusing to cut it. The scale is bigger at Barings. The psychology is exactly the same. So here's the real question. What hard limit would have stopped the spiral before ego took over? What if your account had a ceiling that your ego could not punch through? That's the whole fix. Call it the ruin ceiling rule. Quick aside, if this is useful, subscribe for more like it. Before you enter any trade, 3 things must be true. First, you decide the most you can lose on this idea. Not what you hope, a hard dollar amount, maybe $50 on a $5,000 account. Second, you place your stop loss, a preset price where you automatically get out of a losing trade before the trade starts. Decide only after price moves, then ego is already driving. Third, you set your position sizing, how much money you put into any single trade from that stop. If your stop is $2 away and your max loss is $50, your size is 25 shares. Not 50, not 100, 25. And add one more filter. If the chart needs a wider stop than your ceiling allows, you pass. The trade idea may be fine. Your size is the problem. That rule sounds boring. Good. Boring rules keep you alive. Nick Leeson did the opposite. He let one growing trade decide the fate of the whole institution. You never want a single idea to have that much power over your month, your account, or your rent. So how do you turn this ceiling into one habit you can actually use tomorrow morning? Here's your move this week. Before any trade, write down the dollar amount you're willing to lose, and if it feels painful, make it smaller. That one habit can keep a bad day from becoming an account-ending day. If you like plain English lessons that make trading feel less chaotic, subscribe. Next time, we'll look at the warning signs people ignore right before small losses turn into big ones.